We don't hear you, Joe. Is there a problem with your audio?
Bernie, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. Now you're audible.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. Thank you.
please go
Yeah.
on.
So thank you very much. It's really a real pleasure and an honor, no, to hear from our partners and as well as participants to this agricultural resilient to pandemic's impact, transforming food systems to reduce food loss and waste webinar. So I would like, I was asked to share the summary of lessons and recommendations. And from the presentations, I call it and consolidate it. But of course, we're supposed to have some breakout session, but due to limited time, we're not able to do that. But we're happy to receive feedback so that we can integrate all your comments for this summary of lessons and recommendations. So without much further ado, these are the summary of lessons and recommendations. First is what are the key learnings and challenges? No? Based on the initial presentations, we know that around 1.3 billion tons of food, roughly valued at around USD 1 trillion, are wasted, no? Due to this food loss and waste. And it also create greenhouse gas effects, no, and food waste bigger than many countries. As presented by Cobestro earlier, in Asia alone, there are around 150 to 225 kilograms per year, no, per capita, that resulted, no, to this food loss and waste in varying commodities, no, spices, vegetables, tubers, etc. And globally, per commodity, there's an estimate, no, that 45% for fruits and vegetables were wasted. And earlier, Dr. Ami Salvador shared that in Pelmec study, for example, in eggplant, there's around 0.15, no, to 35% food loss, no, for eggplant, and for cabbage, from harvest to retail, roughly around 20 to 30% food loss. For roots and tubers, there's also an estimate about 45%. And for fish and seafoods, there's an estimate of 35% are lost, no, to waste and from production up to processing up to the end consumers. We also learned that clean processing can be related to good manufacturing practices. That's why there's an input a lot on innovative technologies, no, like the solar dome. And we also learned that reducing food loss would strengthen the livelihood of farmers' organizations and agricultural cooperatives, as well as its farmers and the families. And the use of green technologies in agriculture is very important, as carbon footprint is one of major contributor to climate change. And to determine the appropriate post-production technologies and practices, this was shared earlier by Pelmec, we need to identify the value chain, supply chain of the specific commodities. No, she shared earlier about carrots. No, from farm to the market. No, we need also to identify the actors and the activities in its chain. No, in its chain of the supply chain, and determine the sources and quantify, not only the source but also quantify the losses in each of the chain. To reduce food loss and waste can bring benefits to society, such as increased productivity and economic growth, reduction in the greenhouse gases, increase in food availability to most vulnerable sectors. And partnership building is crucial in providing investments and funding to support innovative ideas in addressing food loss and waste, such as technologies, rebranding, standards, marketing. And this was shared by GIZ in Vietnam, and as well as from Green Living. So there are a number of sharing that this was articulated, no, the importance of partnership building. So our recommendations, and we learned that tackling food loss is essential to increase efficiency in the way our food is produced, distributed, and consumed. As such, there are a number of recommendations from this webinar. First is for farmers organizations and agriculture cooperatives to enhance supply chain management as key factor in reducing food loss and waste. The use of losses, use of losses and waste as raw materials for other value-adding products. Earlier, we saw about the banana wine or powder, coffee logs, no, the use of coffee ground for body scrubs, no, and repellents, maximizing classy vegetables for kimchi, carrot cakes. No? So not only in terms of the production side, but also in terms of enhancing enhancing the processing of these commodities. We also recommend the transition from conventional production practices to innovative production practices. There are a number of experiences right now in new planting and harvesting methods, and also farm diversification. It was articulated earlier. And the use of new green technologies such as mechanization, storage technologies, solar drying such as solar doom, value-added processing, etc. And to continue partnership among stakeholders, especially the farmers organizations and cooperatives with the private sector, no? Like Covestro, government like the FELMEC, and donors like GIZ, in accessing such technologies and further strengthen efforts to address food loss and waste. So these are the 5 recommendations based on the sharing of our panel and of our presenters. And we hope that we can add more as a result of the sharing, your comments, email, or from the chat. And so, Bernie, these are the recommendations and the summary of learnings. Back to you. Thank you, and good
Yes,
afternoon.
thank you.